play it any louder, then it's getting shut down.
My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is October 15, 2025. It is 12:58 a.m. Why I am still awake, I don't know. This is technically the report for the 15th, and here are the top U.S. news highlights for the 14th. It is the news for the 14th. Here are the top U.S. news highlights for the past 24 hours. A Texas county sues over canceled solar grants. Harris County, Texas has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over the cancellation of over $400 million in Solar for All grants. The county argues that the revocation unlawfully disrupts clean energy access for low-income communities and violates federal law. House Republicans demand testimony from Jack Smith. The House Judiciary Committee, led by Republicans, has requested that former special counsel Jack Smith testify regarding his investigations into the Trump administration. The committee seeks documents and an interview as part of its oversight responsibilities. Judge rules FEMA tied aid to immigration compliance unlawfully. A federal judge has ruled that the Trump administration unlawfully conditioned disaster relief funds on states' cooperation with immigration enforcement. The court found that such conditions violated constitutional principles and ordered the administration to cease this practice. President Trump announced that a military strike targeted a vessel off the coast of Venezuela. He shot down another boat, resulting in 6 fatalities. The administration claims the vessel was linked to narco-terrorist activities. The strike has drawn bipartisan scrutiny over its legality and potential escalations of tensions in the region. Legal disputes continue over the deployment of National Guard troops in various states, including Oregon and California. A federal judge previously issued a temporary restraining order blocking National Guard deployments to Oregon, citing constitutional concerns. FEMA disaster aid conditions overturned. A federal judge has invalidated the Trump administration's policy that tied disaster relief funds to states' cooperation with immigration enforcement. The court's decision mandates that the administration cease imposing such conditions on federal aid. In a significant ruling, a federal judge has blocked any National Guard deployments to Oregon, citing constitutional concerns and the need to uphold state authority. This decision has implications for federal-state relations and the use of military resources within the U.S. Escalating trade tensions with China have led to retaliatory tariffs on U.S. agricultural products, including soybeans and cooking oil. These measures have disrupted export markets and raised concerns among American farmers about the long-term impact on their livelihoods. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has experienced significant staffing changes, including mass layoffs and subsequent reinstatements. These disruptions have raised concerns about the agency's capacity to respond effectively to public health threats. President Trump hosted Argentine President Javier Milei at the White House discussing a proposed $20 billion aid package. Trump indicated that future assistance would depend on the outcomes of Argentina's upcoming elections, signaling the administration's influence over international aid based on political alignments. He's bribing Argentina to try and choose who's going to be in charge of the country. So he just put our soybean farmers out of business and used the money to bribe Argentina to essentially manipulate the outcome of the election. He is bribing foreign nations to engage in a coup through the elections. The U.S. administration continues to engage in diplomatic efforts related to Gaza, including facilitating prisoner exchanges and supporting ceasefire initiatives. These actions reflect U.S.'s ongoing role in Middle Eastern peace processes. My understanding is that there was a ceasefire order. Trump signed something, and it's already being violated, if I am not mistaken. Today, the stock market closed with the Dow Jones at $46,067.58. The S&P 500 declined by 0.2%, ending at $4,548.92. And the Nasdaq Composite fell 0.8%, closing at $14,129.89. For those of you who are visual learners, this is the S&P 500. This is the Dow Jones. And this is Invesco QQQ. And here are the top trade and economic highlights for the past 24 hours. U.S.-China trade tensions escalate, shipping sanctions imposed by China. China has sanctioned U.S. subsidiaries of South Korean shipping company Hanwha Ocean, restricting transactions with Chinese entities. This intensifies friction in the ongoing trade dispute and raises logistical uncertainties for U.S. exporters. Trump administration's threats on trade. President Trump has publicly warned that U.S. trade relations with China could be terminated over cooking oil exports and the refusal of Beijing to purchase U.S. soybeans. These statements have added volatility to commodity markets and disrupted corporate planning for imports and exports. The U.S. soybean market has faced a sharp decline in Chinese purchases, putting significant financial strain on American farmers. Analysts indicate that soybeans and related commodities may see prolonged price fluctuations unless alternative export markets are secured. Goldman Sachs analysis shows that U.S. households are absorbing more than half the costs of the new tariffs, particularly in furniture and lumber, which is driving inflation in construction and consumer markets. Supply chain disruptions. Ports and shipping lanes are adjusting to tariffs and sanctions, with higher freight costs and delays reported in soybean, lumber, and cooking oil shipments. Companies are exploring alternative suppliers and logistical solutions, which may have medium-term economic consequences. GDP and growth. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, has adjusted its 2025 global growth forecast upward slightly, noting that U.S. trade disruptions have had less severe impact than initially projected. However, ongoing uncertainty regarding tariffs and geopolitical tensions could dampen future growth. Forecasts for U.S. Q3 GDP remain stable around 2.1%, but consumer sentiment may be affected by inflationary pressures from trade and energy price shifts. U.S. consumers are directly affected by tariffs, which are raising prices in household goods and construction materials. Analysts estimate that disposable income for middle-income households could be reduced by 0.5% to 1% due to these trade measures. Initial October labor reports indicate stable hiring in the manufacturing and logistics sectors, despite disruptions from trade conflicts. The agricultural sector shows increased stress on farm labor markets due to declining exports of soybeans and corn, with some states reporting slower seasonal hiring. Agriculture. Soybeans, corn, and cooking oil are facing export reductions to China, increasing domestic inventories and creating downward pressure on prices for producers. Alternative markets are being sought in Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa to mitigate losses. Gasoline and diesel prices remain elevated due to global demand and localized refinery slowdowns. Energy exports remain resilient, partially offsetting losses in the agricultural export sector. Technology and manufacturing. Semiconductor and electronics exports face moderate risk from tariff uncertainty, particularly products entering Asia. Supply chains are under review by major U.S. manufacturers to reduce exposure to tariff-related disruptions. Volatility. The CBOE Volatility Index, VIX, ticked up 1.2% due to trade uncertainty and geopolitical developments. Investor behavior analysts report rotation into energy, industrials, and defense stocks as a hedge against potential global disruptions. They're encouraging people buy policy on regulatory impacts. Recent executive decisions on trade and tariffs, combined with ongoing congressional oversight, continue to shape U.S. economic risk exposure. Delays in agricultural subsidies and clean energy programs due to legal challenges are affecting regional economies, particularly in Texas and the Midwest. The U.S. economy faces a dual challenge from escalating trade tensions with China and domestic inflationary pressures caused by tariffs. Agricultural exports, consumer goods, and manufacturing supply chains are the most immediately affected sectors. Financial markets reflect cautious investor sentiment, while macroeconomic indicators remain relatively stable but vulnerable to policy shifts. And remember, kids, the stock market is not the economy. Just because the S&P 500 or Dow Jones might be performing does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. And here is the hazardous weather outlook for the next few days for the United States. The U.S. Weather Predictions Center's 3 to 7 day hazardous weather outlook indicates excessive rainfall, marginal risk across parts of the central U.S., including portions of the Midwest and Great Plains. Heavy snow, high risk in the Rockies, particularly in Colorado, with moderate risk extending into Wyoming and Utah. No significant ice or heat risks are forecasted for this period. Regional highlights: Rocky Mountains and Plains, heavy snow, high risk of heavy snow in the Rockies, especially in Colorado, with moderate risk extending into Wyoming and Utah. Wind and fire weather, gusty winds and dry conditions may elevate fire weather concerns in some areas. Eastern Seaboard, North Carolina, high surf advisory in effect until October 15th, 8 o'clock p.m. EDT. Coastal flood advisory in effect until October 15th, 6 a.m. Beach hazards statement in effect from October 15th, 8 a.m. until October 15th, 8 p.m. Fire weather outlook for southeast Texas. Warm and dry weather is bringing greater risk of fire. Air quality alert. An ozone action day is in effect for Wednesday, October 15, 2025, covering Houston, Galveston, and surrounding areas. And here are the top international news highlights for the past 24 hours. Gaza peace agreement. On October 13, 2025, President Donald Trump and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi co-chaired a peace summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, marking the first phase of a comprehensive Gaza peace plan. The summit resulted in the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas despite the ceasefire. Israeli forces reported the deaths of at least 9 Palestinians in Gaza, citing that the individuals had approached soldiers before being targeted. U.S. military action near Venezuela. On October 14, 2025, the U.S. military conducted a strike on a vessel off Venezuela's Caribbean coast, allegedly involved in drug trafficking. The operation resulted in the death of 6 individuals. This action follows a previous strike on October 3rd that killed 4 people. I would like to also note that there have been people complaining that fishermen in Venezuela are going missing. Global events and developments. Israel-Hamas conflict. Despite the ceasefire agreement, tensions remain high. Israeli forces reported the deaths of at least 9 Palestinians in Gaza, citing that the individuals had approached soldiers before being targeted. India-Pakistan border clashes. Pakistan closed its border with Afghanistan following exchanges of fire in Chaman. The situation has raised concerns about regional stability and the potential for broader conflict. China UN Women Summit. China and UN Women co-hosted the Global Leaders Meeting on Women in Beijing on October 13th to 14th. The summit, attended by heads of state and government leaders, focused on advancing gender equality and women's empowerment globally. If anybody is not already aware, Violence against women has been on a very heavy increase since the beginning of the pandemic. So seeing movement towards protecting women and protecting women's rights is something that is very important right now, because women are suffering and dying. Cultural and human interest D'Angelo passes away. Grammy-winning R&B artist D'Angelo, known for hits like Brown Sugar and untitled How Does It Feel, has died at the age of 51 from pancreatic cancer. His death has prompted tributes from fans and fellow musicians worldwide. These are the top U.S. news highlights, world highlights, economic highlights, and weather highlights for the past 24 hours. This is reporting for October 14th. We will see you later. Everybody stay safe out there.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, you know, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup too. And you know, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. You know, I got both of them. I got the Olympics and I got the World Cup. And I said, you know, it's too bad. One was in 2026 and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election and now we won. So I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup, and everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, cause MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA, abolish MAGA, fuck you MAGA.